When a payment is received from a customer who has outstanding accounts receivable invoices, that payment can be applied to those invoices using the receipt screen. To get to the receipt screen, we would go to either receipts on our quick list or to processes, sales, and receipts. Up at the top, we'll select the company receiving the money. Below that, we'll select the bank account or the undeposited funds account that the money is being deposited into. If we want to include this on a bank deposit slip, or we want to group it together with other receipts for our bank reconciliation, we can select a bank deposit to put that onto. If they have one that's open, I could select the open deposit, or I could click new to create a new one. Then I'm going to select the customer that we've received the payment from. When you select a customer that has outstanding accounts receivable invoices, the Apply to Open Invoices button will be highlighted in yellow, and next to it will be the total of all of the invoices that are due. If I want to print out a cash receipt when I enter in this transaction, I can create a sequence number for receipts, which I have here, or you can just type in a receipt number for that cash receipt. I'm going to enter in I selected the date that the money was received, and now I can go ahead and enter in the total amount that was received. And in this first example, I'm just going to receive the total amount that is out there for outstanding invoices, so the total amount of the invoices. The payment was received on a check, so I'm going to select the payment type and then enter in a check number. In order to apply this to the open invoice, I need to click the Apply to Open Invoices box. And on this screen, there's a couple of different ways to apply it to any of my invoices due. This particular customer only has one invoice, but for each invoice that would be outstanding, you would see a line for each and every one of them. The first piece of information is just some basic information about the invoice, such as the invoice date, the invoice number, the amount due, and the due date. And if you had entered in a customer PO number when you created the invoice, you'd see that there as well. If I opened that up by clicking on the plus sign, and that invoice had multiple detail lines, I would see a detail line here for each and every one of those detail lines on the invoice. This one only had one. When applying the amount that I had entered in on the prior screen, you're going to notice that it has the amount up here in the receipt amount box. So if I click apply, what it does is that it applies that amount to the oldest invoice first, and then any remaining amount to any remaining invoices. In this case, the total amount was received, so the amount due is 0. But if the amount due had been less than that, which we'll see in a little bit, you would see still an amount due there. Also, if you had received an amount that was over this, you would see an overpayment, and we'll show you an example of both of those in just a minute. Okay, so since I'm paying everything, I could just click the apply and it would mark that as paid, and I could click OK. Another way to do that, so I'm going to click the reset button, would have been to just check the invoice I wanted to pay, and it marks it as the amount, the total amount being paid. And then finally, an additional way to do that would be to click on the Pay All button at the bottom. I'm going to click OK, and you'll see that it puts a line in there that is decreasing the accounts receivable account, increasing my bank account. And so when I hit save, that's what it's going to do. Now, before I hit save, if I do want to print out that cash receipt, I want to make sure that the box is marked to print the cash receipt, and then that the receipt form is selected. Okay. If I'm emailing the receipt out to the customer, I will have marked the customer record with the option to email, and you would see a check mark here next to the email option. And then finally, if you want to attach a document to this receipt, you can use one of these two icons to either scan in the document directly from your scanner or to attach a document that's already on your hard drive. You can review the video on attaching documents to see more about that. I'm going to click Save. Now, if I were to select that same customer again, since I've paid or received payment on all of those invoices, when I select them again, you'll notice that the Apply to Open Invoices button is no longer yellow and the amount due is 0. I'm going to click Clear on that. I'm going to select another customer, Chuck Adams, and Chuck actually has multiple invoices that are due. In this case, in this example first, what I'm going to do is enter in a payment amount that is less than what is due. So I'm going to enter in $7,000. We're going to say that we received that payment via a check and put in the customer's check number and then click on the Apply to Open Invoices. You'll notice that when I click Apply up at the top, that it applies the amount to the oldest invoice out there. And since it wasn't enough to cover the total amount due, it still shows an amount due over here, so that portion will remain outstanding. I'm going to reset that and click OK and go back to the screen. And if I had entered in a payment amount that was more than the total amount of the invoices and clicked on Apply to Open Invoices and then clicked the Apply button, you would see that the system would recognize that the amount is more than what is due in invoices. So it will ask us how we want to apply that additional amount. I can apply that additional amount to an accounts receivable account and it'll create a negative invoice which can be applied to later payments. Or if I have created an account under liabilities in the category of customer deposits, in this case I called mine customer deposits, I could select that account and it would set up a customer deposit for this customer of $1,125.24. Now that amount can be applied to future invoices or it can be refunded. So I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to, you'll see here that it's creating that separate line for increasing the customer deposits account there. And I'm going to save that. Now when I select Chuck Adams again, it doesn't show the negative invoice because I put that to the customer deposits account. Had I put that to a negative invoice, you would see a negative amount there. I'm going to clear that. Now, the last thing I want to discuss here is any customers who have invoices that have discounts on them. So I'm going to choose the customer Andy Johnson who has an outstanding invoice that has a discount on it. I'm going to say that he went ahead and paid us the full amount that's due and that the payment amount was made in it by a check, and this was what the check number was. Now, he did not calculate his own discount and paid the full amount. So when I click on the Apply to Open Invoices and I apply this, it calculates not only the discount amount over here, but it also calculates an overpayment amount. So I'm going to need to select what account I want to apply this discount to. So I'm going to create a new account and I am going to create this as a discounts given account, and it's going to be an expense account, and I'm going to put this under under general administrative expenses here and click Save. Now if I want that to be the account each time, I could right click on it and set it as the default, and that's going to be the same account that's there each time. And then I can decide again how I want to apply that overpayment. I could either create a negative accounts receivable invoice or I could put it to the customer deposits account. This time I'm going to apply it to an accounts receivable invoice so you can see how that negative invoice shows up. So we'll go ahead and click OK on that, and then I'm going to save it. And if I were to choose that customer again, you would see that he would have that negative invoice out there. So the next time that I have other invoices out there and I'm receiving a payment on them, I can also apply this negative amount to the amount that they're paying.